Hello, Facebook. Siena here in Aquarium Central. We are going to start our live stream encounter in just about 15 minutes, but for now we wanted to do something for the younger kids. So we are going to have a story time. This is Donna. She will probably be helping us read today, but also might make it way more difficult because that's one of the things that she does so well. All right, so our first, and this is Victoria, our animal handler extraordinaire, and she has her friend here whose name is
Roz.
Roz. This is Roz. He is a veiled chameleon, and we're going to read this book called Chameleons Are Cool, which is well named because chameleons are cool. Okay, so this is a book by Martin Jenkins, illustrated by Sue Shields, read by Siena, and interpreted by Victoria and Roz.
Oh, yeah.
And Donna. Okay, so let's see. Oh, there's something there. Okay. Some lizards eat bananas. Chameleons don't. Some lizards walk upside down on ceilings. Chameleons can't. There's even a lizard that glides from tree to tree. A chameleon certainly wouldn't do that. But of all different kinds of lizards, I still think chameleons are best. Chameleons are cool. It's not that they're all that big. The biggest is only about the size of a small cat. It's called Ocelots chameleon, and it lives in Madagascar. They can be really, really small though. The smallest one could balance happily on your little finger. It's called the dwarf Rhodesia, maybe, and it lives in Madagascar too. And I suppose you wouldn't exactly call them beautiful. Their skin is wrinkly and bumpy, and they've got bulgy eyes, while lots of them have the most ridiculous noses. I think it's their noses that I like best. Their mouths are pretty odd too. They turn down at the corners, which is why chameleons, just like Victoria, always look grumpy. Actually, they don't look grumpy, they are grumpy. So if two chameleons bump into each other, things can get pretty lively. There's lots of puffing and hissing, and sometimes there's a real fight. And that's when chameleons do what they're most famous for. They change color. Lots of people think chameleons change color to match their surroundings. They don't. They change color when they're angry, or when they're too cold, or too hot, or when they're sick. And there are some sorts of chameleons that hardly change colors at all. As a rule, though, chameleons don't bump into one another all that often, I suppose. It would be fair to call them lazy. But they certainly don't move any more than they have to. And when they do, it's always incredibly slow. Sometimes they stop completely in mid-step, as if they've forgotten what they're supposed to be doing. But if you look closely, you'll see that they're actually carefully peering about. Now, peering about is something chameleons are rather good at. That's because their eyes can move separately from each other, unlike our eyes, which always move together. So one eye is looking back over the chameleon's shoulder, and the other is scanning the branches ahead. As soon as it spots something tasty, the chameleon fixes both eyes on its prey and begins to creep forward, even more slowly than usual, and then it opens its mouth just a crack, and whop! Out shoots this amazingly long tongue with a sticky tip at the end, like a piece of well-chewed chewing gum. Then the tongue flicks back, and there's a lot of chomping and chewing, and perhaps a few bits of insect leg fluttering on the ground. And after, the chameleon just sits there for an hour or two, doing nothing very much at all, looking quite exhausting, and still grumpy after all that work. And there you have it. How could you possibly resist a pocket-sized, bad-tempered, color-changing, swivel-eyed, snail-paced, long-tongued sharpshooter? If chameleons aren't cool, then I don't know what is. So that was our first book. Now we're going to talk a lot about chameleons with our live stream. Our handler Kaylee brought us something really cool to look at, so stay tuned after that. And now we're going to put Roz down for a little bit, and we're going to read a different book. Now today we're going to be talking about reptiles and birds. So our next book is about birds. And we've brought two birds with us today. Well, we've got a couple birds with us today. But I brought two of my personal pets, so they're kind of my favorites. Our first one here is Icy, sitting next to me. And then we also have Kiko. He's over there. Kiko and I are having a little bit of a disagreement this morning, so Victoria's holding him today. Now Kiko and Icy are both eclectus parrots, and we're going to talk a lot about them, but right now we'll read our story. So this is called Harold Finds a Voice. Now this book is from the library. I was able to get it because even though the library is closed right now because of the virus, you are able to reserve books online totally for free and then drive through the library and pick them up. So thank you to the Lafayette Public Library for letting us get this awesome book. So we will get started. This is called Harold Finds His Voice by Courtney Dismiss? Okay, so we'll get started. Okay, deep in the heart of Paris, in apartment 4B, there lived a very clever parrot. His name was Harold. Harold was a gifted bird. He could hear any sound just once and copy it perfectly. When Harold heard something beautiful, he couldn't resist the urge to repeat it. He loved the sound of water the most. There was only one problem. Harold was tired of repeating the same old noises. He often wondered what other sounds were out there. Early one morning, Harold saw a chance to find out and took it. Harold couldn't believe his ears. The world was full of beautiful sounds. Everything had its own voice. There were big voices and small ones. There were cheerful voices and sad voices, even soulful, sniffly voices. It seemed that everything in the world had its own voice except Harold. I must have my own voice, he thought. It's got to be in there somewhere. It's now or never, he decided. He took a deep breath and... What was that? What a horrible noise. But then something wonderful happened. What a great voice, squawked the other parrots. We heard you from miles away. That afternoon, Harold's new friends listened to all the voices he could make. They wanted to hear more and more and more. When it was time for dinner, Harold invited them back home. Harold taught his friends to make all the voices from apartment 4B. Of course, Harold was the best alarm clock. He was the best at kettle noise. He was easily the best washing machine. and he made the best shower. But his own voice made him the happiest of all. Okay, so we ran out of time for our third book, but guys, stay tuned. In about 5 minutes, we're going to start with our live stream. It's going to be geared toward a little bit older crowd. It probably won't be as good as that was. But stay tuned. We will be right back. Thanks for watching.